The Galaxy Council had watched Earth for 106 years. They had studied the small blue planet from the moment their scout ships first detected strange radio signals coming from the edge of the Milky Way. When they finally made contact in the year 2241, they expected the humans to beg for membership in their great civilization. They expected fear, wonder, and desperate pleading. Instead, they got silence. Admiral Jack Harris stood at the window of his office on Europa Station, looking out at the frozen moon's surface. Behind him, screens showed data from across the solar system. Trade routes, ship movements, council patrol schedules. He knew everything that happened in human space, and the council knew nothing about him. That was exactly how he wanted it. His door opened, and Dr. Lisa Cole walked in. She was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes. She had spent 40 years learning every language the council species spoke. She had listened to their broadcasts, read their documents, and studied their history. She knew them better than they knew themselves. They voted, she said. Her voice was calm, but Harris could see the anger in her eyes. I know, he replied. I watched it live. The council had voted to remove Earth's protected status. For over a century, humanity had been classified as a primitive species under observation. This meant they could not join galactic trade or politics, but it also meant no one could touch them. They were like animals in a nature reserve, watched but not harmed. Now that protection was gone. They are calling it the Resource Redistribution Act, Lisa said. She almost laughed at the words. They want our moon colonies. The helium. 3 deposits. The water ice. Everything we have built. Harris turned from the window. His face showed no emotion. But inside, he felt something cold and hard settling in his chest. He had waited for this day. He had prepared for it, but some part of him had hoped it would never come. How long do we have? He asked. Counselor Mirathex pushed for immediate action. She wants extraction teams on Luna within 30 days. Harris nodded slowly. Mirathex. He knew that name well. The Kethari representative was the loudest voice against humanity in the council. She had called humans insects, vermin, a mistake of evolution that should be corrected. She believed the galaxy belonged to the strong, and the weak existed only to serve them. She had never understood why Earth stayed silent. None of them had. The council believed silence meant weakness. When their ambassadors came to Earth, demanding trade agreements, humans said nothing. When they insulted humanity in their broadcasts, calling them primitive apes, humans said nothing. When they placed sanctions and embargoes, cutting Earth off from galactic commerce, humans said nothing. The council took this as proof that they were right. Humans were weak. They were afraid. They knew their place. They could not have been more wrong. Harris walked to his desk and unlocked a drawer that had not been opened in 20 years. Inside was a single file, sealed with the emblem of the United Earth Council. The words on the cover read, Prometheus Protocol. He had hoped he would never need to open it. Send word to Governor Taylor on Luna Colony 7, Harris said. Tell him to begin quiet evacuations of non-essential personnel. Families first. Make it look like normal rotation. Lisa frowned. You think they will hit Luna first? Luna has the largest helium-3 deposits in the system. Mirathex is greedy, and she is arrogant. She will want to show the council that humans will not resist. She will make an example of our biggest colony. And will we resist? Harris looked at the file in his hands. 106 years of work. 106 years of building in secret. Of hiding their true capabilities. Of letting the galaxy believe they were nothing. All of it came down to what happened next. Not yet, he said. We need them to cross the line first. We need the galaxy to see who they really are. Lisa understood. The council controlled information. They told their citizens that humans were dangerous, unpredictable, a threat that needed to be contained. If Earth struck first, it would prove everything the council said. But if the council attacked innocent civilians, if they murdered women and children for resources, the truth would be impossible to hide. You are going to let them hurt us, Lisa said quietly. Yes. Harris did not look away from her eyes. and I will carry that weight for the rest of my life. But when this is over, there will be no doubt about who we are and who they are. The galaxy will have to choose." Lisa was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded. "I will prepare the broadcasts. When the time comes, every species in the galaxy will see what happens." She left, and Harris was alone. He opened the Prometheus protocol file and began to read. Inside were the locations of every hidden shipyard, every secret weapons facility, every piece of technology that Earth had developed in silence. 2,000 warships waited in the darkness of space, weapons that could tear through Council shields like paper, engines that could cross the galaxy in days instead of months. Earth had not been weak. Earth had been patient. The Council thought they understood humans. They thought silence meant submission. They thought a species that did not fight back was a species that could not fight back. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Harris closed the file and looked out the window once more. Somewhere out there, Council ships were already preparing to move toward Luna. Somewhere out there, innocent people would soon die because of the greed of beings who saw them as nothing more than insects. He could stop it. He could reveal Earth's true power right now and save those lives. But he could not win the war that way. The galaxy needed to see the truth. They needed to see the Council murder civilians. They needed to see humans die without fighting back. Only then would they understand that when Earth finally did fight, it was not aggression. It was justice. Harris picked up his communicator and sent a single message to every member of the Earth Defense Council. Prometheus protocol is active. All units stand by. The silence ends soon. Then he sat down and waited for the galaxy to cross the final line. Governor Ben Taylor stood in the command center of Luna Colony 7 and watched 3 warships appear on his screens. They were Kethari vessels, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. Their hulls were black and covered with weapons that could turn his entire colony to ash in minutes. 40,000 people lived under the domes of Luna Colony 7. Families, workers, children. They had built their lives here, mining helium-3 and sending it back to Earth. They were farmers and engineers, teachers and doctors. They were not soldiers, and now death had come for them. "Governor Taylor," a cold voice crackled through the communication system. "I am Commander Vexnar of the Kethari Extraction Fleet. By order of the Galaxy Council, you are required to evacuate this facility immediately. You have 6 hours to remove all personnel. After that time, cleansing operations will begin." Taylor felt his hands shake, but he kept his voice steady. "Commander, we have 40,000 civilians here. 6 hours is not enough time to evacuate. We need at least 2 weeks to arrange transport ships. Please, there are children here." There was silence on the other end. Then Vexnar spoke again, and his voice was like ice. "You have 6 hours. Any humans remaining after that time will be considered hostile occupiers and dealt with accordingly. This is not a negotiation." The communication ended. Taylor turned to Captain Amy Dawson, the head of colony security. She was a tall woman with short brown hair and eyes that had seen too much. She had served in the Earth Defense Force for 20 years, but the weapons she had were decades old. They were meant to stop pirates and smugglers, not destroy Council warships. "Can we fight them?" Taylor asked, already knowing the answer. Amy shook her head slowly. "Not a chance. Those ships have shields that could stop anything we have. Our weapons would bounce off them like rain on a window. If they decide to fire on us, everyone dies. Then we evacuate whoever we can." The next 6 hours were chaos. Families grabbed what they could carry and ran toward the transport bays. Mothers held crying children. Fathers carried elderly parents. The transport ships filled up fast, but there were not enough of them. There were never going to be enough. Amy stayed in the command center, watching the clock count down. She had sent her own family away on the first ship. Her husband, her 2 daughters. She had kissed them goodbye and told them she would follow soon. She knew she was lying. 1 hour left, she said quietly. Taylor stood beside her. He had refused to leave. If his people were going to die, he would die with them. Outside the main dome, 23,000 people still waited. The transport ships were gone. There was nowhere left to run. Some of them prayed. Some of them held their loved ones close. Some of them simply stood and watched the sky, waiting for the end. Sophie Grant was 8 years old. She held her mother's hand and looked up at the stars. She had always loved the stars. She used to dream about traveling to them someday, seeing all the strange worlds the galaxy had to offer. Now, those stars were blocked by the shadows of warships, and her dreams had turned to nightmares. "Mommy," she whispered, "are the aliens going to hurt us?" Her mother pulled her close and stroked her hair. "No, baby. Everything is going to be okay." It was a lie, and they both knew it. The clock reached 0. Commander Vexnar did not hesitate. He had orders from Counselor Mirathex herself. Make an example of the humans. Show the galaxy what happens to species that waste valuable resources. The first blast hit the outer dome of Section 7. The shield that protected the colony from the vacuum of space shattered like glass. Air rushed out into the darkness. Bodies flew through the breach, spinning into the void. 847 people died in the first 3 minutes. 112 of them were children. Sophie Grant survived only because her mother threw her body over hers when the dome cracked. The emergency bulkheads sealed just in time to save the inner sections. Sophie lay on the cold floor, covered in her mother's blood, screaming for someone to help. No help came. On Earth, every screen went dark. Then a single message appeared. White letters on black background. Luna Colony. 7 attacked. 847 dead, including 112 children. Council forces responsible. For 3 seconds, the planet was completely silent. Then the silence broke. Admiral Jack Harris received the casualty report in real time. He read every name. He memorized every face. These were his people. He had let them die because he needed the galaxy to see the truth. He had made a choice, and now he would have to live with it. His hands did not shake. His voice did not waver. He simply pressed a button on his console and spoke 4 words. Open the Prometheus silos. Across Earth, the world changed in an instant. In the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, the water began to churn and boil. A massive door opened in the seafloor, and a ship rose from the depths. It was 2 kilometers long, covered in weapons that gleamed in the sunlight. It was followed by another, and another, and another. In the Sahara Desert, sand dunes collapsed as hidden hangars opened beneath them. Ships that had been buried for decades lifted into the sky, their engines screaming with power. In the mountains of Tibet, in the frozen wastes of Antarctica, in the forests of Canada, and the plains of Australia, doors that had been hidden for a century finally opened. 2,000 warships rose from Earth. Each one was more advanced than anything the Galaxy Council had ever seen. Each one carried weapons that could destroy a Council battleship with a single shot. Each one had been built in secret, prepared for this exact moment. Earth had been silent for 106 years. The silence was over. Governor Taylor watched from Luna Colony 7 as the Earth fleet appeared in orbit. He had known the plan. He had known that people would die. He had agreed to be the bait, to let his colony suffer so that humanity could have justice. But knowing did not make the pain any less. He looked at the list of the dead and found Sophie Grant's mother among them. He found teachers he had known for years. He found children who had played in the colony gardens just yesterday. Was it worth it? Amy asked quietly. Taylor did not answer. He did not know if he would ever be able to answer that question. But as he watched the Earth fleet gather in the darkness of space, he knew one thing for certain. The beings who had killed his people were going to pay. Every single one of them. The Galaxy Council did not believe the reports at first. 2,000 warships from a primitive species? Impossible. Earth had no shipyards capable of building such a fleet. Earth had no technology that could match Council weapons. Earth was nothing. Counselor Mirathex laughed when she heard the news. Let them come, she said to the assembled representatives. We will crush them like the insects they are. This will be over in days. She was wrong. Admiral Jack Harris stood on the bridge of the Endurance, the flagship of the Earth fleet. Commander Nathan Price stood beside him, reading the tactical displays. They showed the positions of every Council ship in the galaxy. every patrol route, every weakness in their defenses. Earth had been watching for a very long time. "The fleet is ready, Admiral," Nathan said. 2,000 ships, fully armed, waiting for your orders." Harris nodded slowly. He had spent his entire life preparing for this moment. He had built this fleet from nothing. He had trained these crews in secret. He had waited while the Council mocked his people, insulted his species, and finally murdered innocent civilians. Now it was time to answer. He activated the fleet-wide communication system. His voice would reach every ship, every crew member, every human who had sworn to defend their world. "This is Admiral Harris." 106 years ago, the Galaxy Council looked at Earth and saw nothing worth respecting. They called us primitive. They called us weak. They put us in a cage and forgot about us. He paused, letting his words sink in. 3 days ago, they killed 847 of our people. They killed children. They laughed while they did it. They thought we would do nothing because we have always done nothing. His voice hardened. They were wrong. The fleet began to move. 2,000 ships activated their engines at the same moment, and the darkness of space lit up with blue fire. They moved faster than anything the Council had ever seen. Earth had developed a new type of engine in secret, something that bent space itself. A journey that should have taken months would take only days. The Council did not know they were coming until it was too late. On the planet Nexus Prime, Ambassador Zekril watched the news feeds with growing horror. He was Torvian, a species of tall, thin beings with silver skin and large dark eyes. His people had been members of the Council for 6,000 years. He had served as a diplomat for most of his life, and he had always known that something was very wrong with the Council. He had watched Mirathex push for the attack on Luna Colony. He had argued against it, warned that humans were not as weak as they seemed. No one had listened. The Kethari controlled the Council, and Mirathex controlled the Kethari. Now disaster was coming, and Zekril had a choice to make. He could stand with the Council and watch them try to destroy humanity, or he could do what his conscience demanded. He chose his conscience. That night, Zekril sent a secret message to the Endurance. It contained every Council defense code, every shield frequency, every weakness in their military networks. It was treason of the highest order. If he was caught, he would be executed, but he did not care. The Earth fleet received his message and changed their battle plans. Now they could disable Council shields. Now they could shut down their weapons. Now they could win without destroying everything. Dr. Lisa Cole received the message in her quarters aboard the Endurance. She read it 3 times to make sure it was real. Then she went to Admiral Harris and showed him. "He is risking his life for us," she said. "Why?" "Why?" Harris studied the message. "Because not everyone in the Council is evil. Some of them see what the Kethari have become. Some of them remember what the Council was supposed to be. What do? We accept his help. And when this is over, we make sure beings like him have a place in whatever comes next." The Earth fleet reached the border of Council space in 4 days. A Council armada of 15,000 ships waited for them. It was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. The Council was confident. They had numbers. They had experience. They had been fighting wars for millennia. They had never fought humans. Admiral Harris broadcast a single message to the galaxy. Every species with a receiver heard his words. "You killed our children. We are coming." The Battle of Threshold began at exactly midnight, Earth Standard Time. The Council fleet opened fire with everything they had. Thousands of energy beams streaked toward the human ships, enough firepower to destroy a planet. The beams hit human shields and stopped. Council commanders stared at their screens in disbelief. Their weapons had done nothing. The human shields were made of something they had never seen before. Something that absorbed energy instead of deflecting it. Then the humans fired back. A single shot from the Endurance tore through a Council battleship like it was made of paper. The vessel exploded in a ball of fire, killing 8,000 crew members in an instant. Another shot, another ship destroyed. Another. The Council fleet began to panic. Commander Nathan Price watched the destruction with a mix of satisfaction and horror. They were winning. They were winning easily. But every ship they destroyed was full of living beings. Soldiers who were just following orders. Engineers who had never wanted to fight. Some of them probably disagreed with what the Council had done to Luna Colony. "Admiral," he said quietly, "we could disable them instead of destroying them. We have Zekral's codes." Very 3-4. "We have Zekral's codes." Harris was silent for a long moment. He thought about the children who had died on Luna. He thought about Sophie Grant's mother, whose body had been found still covering her daughter. He wanted revenge. He wanted the Council to feel the same pain his people had felt. But he was not a monster. "Use the codes," he ordered. "Disable their weapons and shields. Take them prisoner instead of killing them." The tide of battle shifted. Human ships stopped firing their main weapons and started broadcasting shutdown codes. Council vessels went dark one by one, their systems failing, their crews helpless. They floated in space, defeated but alive. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Council armada was broken. 10,000 ships drifted without power. 5,000 had retreated. The human fleet had not lost a single vessel. Admiral Harris looked at the screens showing the captured fleet. He could destroy them all with a word. He could avenge Luna Colony 1,000 times over. Instead, he opened a channel to the surviving Council forces. "Your ships will be towed to safe locations. Your crews will be treated as prisoners of war and returned to their homeworlds when this is over. We are not like you. We do not murder the helpless." Then he turned the fleet toward Nexus Prime. The Council had crossed the final line. Now humanity was coming to collect the debt. Councillor Mirathex stood in the great chamber of Nexus Prime and watched her empire crumble. Reports came in every hour, each one worse than the last. The human fleet was advancing. Colony after colony was surrendering without a fight. Species that had been loyal to the Council for thousands of years were refusing to send their ships to defend Kethari territory. The galaxy was turning against her. "This is impossible," she hissed at her advisors. "They are primitives. They should have been destroyed in the first wave." Her chief military commander, a scarred Kethari named General Thexvor, shook his head slowly. "They were never primitives. They were hiding. They let us believe they were weak, so we would underestimate them. Then they tricked us." "No, Counselor. We tricked ourselves. We saw what we wanted to see." Mirathex slammed her fist against the table. Her people had ruled the Council for 2,000 years. They had conquered dozens of species. They had built an empire that spanned half the galaxy. She would not let a group of humans from a backwater planet take it all away. "Prepare the Devastator," she ordered. General Thexvor went pale. "Counselor, the Devastator is a planet killer. Using it would violate every treaty we have ever signed." "I do not care about treaties. I care about winning." The Devastator was a weapon that had been banned for 3,000 years. It fired a beam of pure energy that could crack a planet's core and kill everything on its surface. It had only been used twice in galactic history, both times against species that no longer existed. Mirathex planned to use it on Earth. Admiral Jack Harris learned of the plan from Ambassador Zekral, who had now fully joined the human side. The Torvian diplomat appeared on the Endurance's screens with fear in his large dark eyes. "She has gone mad," Zekral said. "She would rather destroy your entire world than admit defeat. The weapon will be ready to fire within 2 days." Harris felt cold anger settle in his chest. He had shown mercy to the Council fleet. He had spared thousands of lives when he could have taken them. And this was how they repaid him. "Can we stop it?" Commander Nathan Price asked. "We have a defense grid around Earth," Harris replied. It was designed to stop exactly this kind of weapon. But the fact that she is willing to use it tells us everything we need to know about what kind of being she is. Dr. Lisa Cole stepped forward. "Admiral, if we broadcast her plan to the galaxy, it will destroy whatever support she has left. Even her allies will turn against her. Do it. Let everyone see who they have been following." The broadcast went out within the hour. Every species in the galaxy heard Mirathex's recorded orders to fire a planet killer at a world full of civilians. They saw the weapon being prepared. They heard her say that she did not care how many humans died. As long as she won, the reaction was immediate. On 17 different worlds, Kethari governors were arrested by their own people. Council representatives from a dozen species announced they were withdrawing from the alliance. Ships that had been sent to defend Nexus Prime turned around and went home. Mirathex had made herself the enemy of the entire galaxy. But she did not stop. The Devastator fired. On Earth, people looked up at the sky and waited to die. They had been told about the weapon. They knew what was coming. Parents held their children. Lovers held hands. Old enemies made peace. They did not run because there was nowhere to run. Then the sky lit up with golden light. Earth's defense grid activated. Satellites that had been hidden in orbit for a century came online. They formed a shield around the planet, a barrier of pure energy that caught the Devastator's beam and held it. For 30 seconds, the beam pushed against the shield. The shield held. Then, the beam stopped. The satellites redirected the energy harmlessly into space. Earth survived. In the command center of the Endurance, the crew cheered. They had won. They had stopped the worst weapon in galactic history. Humanity was safe. But Admiral Harris did not celebrate. He looked at the data showing how close the beam had come to breaking through. He thought about the millions of people on Earth who had just faced death. He thought about what would have happened if the shield had failed. Governor Ben Taylor appeared on the screen from Luna Colony 7. He had watched the entire thing. His face was hard with anger. Admiral, they tried to destroy our entire planet. Every man, woman, and child on Earth almost died because of that monster. We cannot show mercy anymore. We have to end this. Commander Price stepped forward. Sir, I disagree. If we become like them, we lose everything that makes us worth saving. We beat them without becoming monsters. We can finish this the same way. Harris listened to both men. He understood Taylor's anger. He felt it himself. Mirathex had tried to kill billions of innocent people. She deserved to die. But Price was right too. If humans won this war by committing genocide, they would be no better than the Council. The galaxy would fear them instead of respect them. They would become the new oppressors. We will not destroy Nexus Prime, Harris said finally. We will not kill civilians. We will not become what we are fighting against. Taylor started to protest, but Harris held up his hand. But Mirathex and everyone who helped her will face justice. Real justice. Not revenge, not slaughter, but a trial in front of the entire galaxy. They will have to answer for every crime they have committed. And the galaxy will decide their fate. He turned to the navigation officer. Set course for Nexus Prime. Maximum speed. The fleet moved. 2,000 ships cut through space like a blade, heading for the heart of Council territory. They passed surrendering vessels without firing. They ignored planets that posed no threat. They had only one target, the being who had tried to destroy their world. On Nexus Prime, Mirathex watched the human fleet approach. Her last defenders had abandoned her. Her weapon had failed. She had nothing left. For the first time in her long life, she felt fear. They are coming, General Thex Vor said quietly. They will be here within hours. Mirathex looked at him with hatred. Then we fight to the last. No. The general shook his head. We surrender. I will not let my soldiers die for your pride. He walked out of the chamber, leaving her alone. The most powerful being in the galaxy sat in her empty throne room and waited for humanity to arrive. She had crossed the final line. Now she would pay the price. The Earth fleet surrounded Nexus Prime like a ring of stars. 2,000 warships hung in orbit above the Council capital. Their weapons pointed at every military installation on the planet. They could have destroyed everything with a single command. They could have burned the cities and killed millions. They did nothing. Admiral Jack Harris walked through the streets of Nexus Prime with only Dr. Lisa Cole at his side. No guards. No weapons. Just two humans in a city that had called their species vermin for 100 years. The aliens watched them pass with wide eyes. They had expected monsters, They had expected conquerors with fire in their eyes and blood on their hands. Instead, they saw a tired old man and a small woman with gray hair, walking calmly toward the council chambers. The doors of the great hall opened before them. Inside, the representatives of 40 species sat in their seats, waiting. Some looked angry. Some looked afraid. Most just looked confused. At the center of the chamber, Counselor Mira sat in chains. She had been arrested by her own people after General Vor broadcast her crimes to the planet. Even the Kethari had turned against her. Harris walked to the center of the chamber and stopped. He did not speak for a long moment. He simply looked around at the beings who had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. Then he began. 4,000 years ago, this council was created to bring peace to the galaxy. It was meant to protect the weak, promote trade, and end the wars that had killed trillions. For a time, it did these things. He paused, but somewhere along the way, it changed. The strong began to prey on the weak. Species that could not defend themselves were enslaved or destroyed. 23 civilizations were wiped out completely because they had something the council wanted. Dr. Cole activated a display. Images appeared in the air above the chamber. Documents. Records. Evidence of crimes that had been hidden for millennia. The Velkari. The Norn. The bright singers of Andromeda. All gone. All murdered by the beings in this room or their ancestors. Their names were erased from history. Their cultures were forgotten. They existed, and then they did not, because the council decided they were inconvenient. The representatives shifted in their seats. Some refused to look at the images. Others stared with horror, seeing the truth of their civilization for the first time. Earth was going to be next, Harris continued. We were classified as primitives. We were cut off from trade and technology. And when we had something you wanted, you killed our children to take it. He looked directly at Mirathex. She stared back with hatred, but she could not speak. The chains around her were designed to prevent any sound. I could have destroyed this planet. I could have killed every being in this chamber and called it justice. Many of my people wanted me to do exactly that. He shook his head slowly. But that is not why we are here. We did not come to replace one empire with another. We did not come to rule the galaxy. We came to give it a choice. Dr. Cole stepped forward and placed a document on the central podium. It was thick, filled with carefully written text in 100 different languages. This is a charter for a new galactic union, she said. Not a council where the strong dominate the weak, but a true alliance where every species has an equal voice. The largest empire and the smallest colony will have the same vote. No one will be classified as primitive. No one will be enslaved or exploited. The representatives looked at each other in confusion. This was not what they had expected. They had prepared for demands, for threats, for conquest. They had not prepared for this. What about her? One of them asked, pointing at Mirathex. She will face trial, Harris replied. A fair trial, with evidence and witnesses. If she is found guilty, she will be punished according to the laws of the new union. But she will not be executed in secret. She will not disappear. Every species will see justice done. And if we refuse your charter? Harris smiled, but there was no warmth in it. You are free to refuse. Earth will not force anyone to join. But know this. The species that Mirathex oppressed are already rising up. The Torvians have declared independence. The lesser Kethari colonies have joined them. 18 other species have contacted us, asking for protection. He let that sink in. The old council is already dead. The only question is what will replace it. You can join the new union and help build something better. Or, you can try to rebuild your empires and watch them crumble one by one. The debate lasted 3 days. Some representatives argued against the charter. Some demanded that humans be punished for their attack. But in the end, the vote was overwhelming. 34 species signed the charter and became founding members of the new Galactic Union. 6 refused. They were allowed to leave in peace. Mirathex was tried before a court of representatives from every species she had wronged. The trial lasted 2 weeks. Evidence was presented. Witnesses testified. She was found guilty of genocide, war crimes, and crimes against sentient life. She was sentenced to life imprisonment on a barren moon, alone with her memories. 1 year later, Admiral Jack Harris stood on the surface of Luna Colony 7. The domes had been rebuilt. The gardens were green again. 40,000 people lived here once more, along with 5,000 aliens who had come to help with reconstruction. Sophie Grant was 9 years old now. She walked up to the old admiral and looked at him with serious eyes. She had lost her mother in the attack. She had lost friends. She had nightmares that woke her up screaming, but she was alive. "Why did you not destroy them?" she asked. "They killed my mom. They killed everyone. Why did you let them live?" Harris knelt down so he could look at her face. He had asked himself that question many times over the past year. He still was not sure of the answer. "Because silence taught us something," he said finally. "For 100 years, Earth was quiet. We watched. We learned. We saw what happened to species that tried to fight the Council with violence. They all lost, not because they were weak, but because the galaxy believed they were the aggressors." He paused. "We learned that true strength is not about how many enemies you can kill. It is about knowing when not to fight. It is about building something better, instead of just destroying what is bad." Sophie thought about this for a long moment. Is that why they respect us now? Yes. We showed them that humans can be trusted. We could have taken revenge, but we chose justice instead. We could have built an empire, but we chose partnership instead. That is why they follow us now. Sophie nodded slowly. She did not fully understand, but someday she would. In the great chamber of the new Galactic Union, Dr. Lisa Cole took her seat as Earth's representative. She was one voice among 40, no more powerful than the smallest species. The chamber fell silent as she prepared to speak. Every eye was on the human who had helped change the galaxy. "We are here not to rule," she said, "but to stand beside you." The chamber remained silent. But it was not the silence of fear or submission. It was the silence of respect. Earth had been silent for 100 years. Now the whole galaxy listened when humans spoke, not because they were afraid of human weapons, but because they trusted human hearts. The story of humanity in the stars had only just begun.